Hello and welcome to Kristin Mize, a licensed clinical social worker who I'm so excited to have join us today. We're talking about postpartum expectations and everything that kind of goes along with that. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
So where do we want to start?
Oh, geez. Expectations is a loaded word.
I feel like all the time from new parents, there's a lot of pressures to do things a certain way or a right way, which I always say, I don't think there's a right way. It's whatever is the right way for your family. I mean, it starts from birth, preparing for birth or pregnancy or before you get pregnant.
I think it can be a blessing and a curse, of course.
Yes.
But we are so inundated in this generation with information that, let's say, our parents' generation didn't have.
Right.
So with that, I think, comes that much more. Then things can be opinionated, certainly, as well. You have many new facts and research, but then you have many new, outlets for opinions as well. I too am a mom, right? I teach clients all the time. I pull more from the book of life probably than I do from that, master's degree and all that training. And, I know I too even had certain expectations, even coming from when we were kids, when we think about being a mom, what does that look like for us, even as kiddos? Being a certain type of mom or having a certain number of children or living in a certain way that young. I think expectations in the postpartum period is where there can be a lot of room for better preparation, I think. If we can learn to temper our expectations, to, checking in with ourselves rather than what the book said we were supposed to be doing at this stage in the game. This is what I should be doing or the baby should be doing. I think just taking your journey for what it is and going with your gut intuition.
Right.
Mother's intuition is a real thing. And I think a lot of women have a hard time trusting their gut.
Do you have tips of what you suggest to new moms to tap into their intuition?
Literally, your gut tells you things. It is your second brain. And so this idea of your gut instinct is very valid and very valuable in making decisions. But as far as managing expectations, I definitely work a lot with coming up with an idea of what your postpartum plan or even what your family will look like in the postpartum stage. So I know I said I would talk about boundaries, and that's where this comes in too. So I always encourage my expecting mamas or even newly postpartum women to come up with an idea of who do you want to be involved in these days, weeks, months. Do you have issues with a mother-in-law or your own mother? There's a lot of that can go on. Or does your partner want all the friends to come over and see the baby, but you're not really feeling that? So it's having conversations with your partner or with your support system of what you want that to look like. And don't be afraid to not have it involve everybody. Having those conversations well in advance, baby coming, then there's no room for, well, when is my mom going to see the baby? Or when is, I think coming up with a plan. I always stress that the new nuclear family is now you, partner, or, parenting support and child. That is the new nuclear family. And that is where it is so important for decisions to be made to protect that. In-laws, aunts, uncles, friends, family, all the things, they're now on this outer circle. Again, setting those boundaries in the beginning, or at least identifying what feels good and comfortable to you and your partner before baby gets here is super important. But it's never too late to change those too, even after you've had the baby.
Right. Because I think oftentimes we'll be like, hey, I do want this support. And then as it happens, we realize actually I want to kind of figure some of this out and maybe I don't want it as much. And I think that's the best thing about being a new parent is it's your prerogative to change your mind. You don't know what you don't know until it's happening. Sometimes we don't know what we're going to need. I'm all about having a postpartum plan. It could also change. But I think if you've talked about it from the beginning, it's going to make it so much easier to talk about it when it's happening because you've already been having those conversations. I think it's so important to do the postpartum planning.
Yeah. And including who is going to be involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
But, and that way there's no surprises or there's no additional stressors with having to hash out with your partner or a family member why you want some alone time. And that's the other thing too. I think it's important to recognize that they're not always according to a script.
There's no script that goes with that. That's for sure.
I realize the importance, and I stress this with clients, the importance of flexibility with any postpartum plan that you have, including birth plan, right? Prepping oneself. You don't want to have to worry about something changing or whatever. But I do think while you can't predict, you can plan. That's the biggest thing that I say. Yeah. About future events, So I do think that can help, at least with setting the expectations around boundaries is helpful. Again, you may think, oh, we can do this all on our own. And then you realize, help, I need help. Being flexible, being able to shift on a dime. It's okay. We're human. It's life. It can be messy. We can't predict everything.
Do you have a suggestion? You mentioned, like, what are their ideas about, like, how much family's coming in? And if you have differing views, like if he wants all the aunts and uncles to come over and the grandparents, and you're like, oh, I want some space before everyone's invited over. And I think this issue has come up a lot, especially as some people have less concerns or their views on COVID have been different, has caused a lot of difficulty. But do you have suggestions on how to manage differing perceptions on how things should go?
Having an honest conversation with your partner about what feels safe to you. I feel more comfortable or safe when I have my mother with me, but I don't necessarily feel comfortable when I'm trying to figure out nursing potentially or postpartum body with your mother around. That is a valid need. And I think when it comes down to expressing the emotion behind the idea, having to put on a face or a front around certain people, or I feel more comfortable with so-and-so. What I like to say is it's about how you communicate it. I like to tap into, this feels important to me because it's not just about not wanting your mom in the delivery room, for instance, or something, or, wanting to have time in between visits. It's, why is this important to you? Well, because we don't know what we can expect, or I value quiet and peace and calm, or on the flip side, I value the support that perhaps my cousin brings me if your husband or partner is not on board with that, or it's about expressing what you value and what feels important to you. I think that can go a lot farther in a conversation than, this is what I want. It feels important to me because.
And that feeling could change. Okay, so you mentioned support a couple of times, and I feel like this is a big one because we moms specifically tend to feel like we've got to do it all. We want to do it all. The moms over here seem to be doing it all because we can't, let's be honest, we cannot do it all. We can't do this by ourselves. Even just you and your partner is often not enough. How do you ask for help? But then also, how do you accept the help that's offered?
Asking for help, I think, can look various ways, whatever, depending on your level of comfort. Certainly I think seeking somebody who you feel comfortable and safe with would be the easiest person. Culturally, historically, sometimes with women, it may be their mother or mother figure. We're very vulnerable when we're pregnant. Body changes, mood changes, hormone changes, life changes. And so I think it's whoever you would feel most comfortable being vulnerable with, honestly, which is hard. Starting there, I think, can even just take some of the weight off. And just by saying something like, I'm exhausted. We know so much that sleep contributes to the way we feel emotionally and physically after having a baby. Even if you start with, would you mind just coming over so I can sleep for an hour? If you don't feel comfortable asking someone consider if you have the resources. I remember paying a mommy's helper. I mean, it was not something that my husband or I necessarily thought was in our budget, but it was well worth the investment. She would come over for a couple hours so I could just sleep or do the mounds of laundry or something, but there is no shame in getting that help. And so whether that is seeking it through someone who you feel safe and comfortable with or outsourcing. And I know some people say, well, I that's not in our budget, but also are there other areas you can tweak, which we had to do because it more vastly benefited my mental health in order to do that.
What things would you maybe sacrifice now for this, which will then, the benefit outweighs the cost for sure?
Absolutely. Like, can we tighten up on ordering out, not buying all the gadgets, even trying to tighten the budget? Something good that came out of COVID, honestly, was our gas. We're not using as much.
Yeah.
Really, before you automatically go to no, we can't do that, really try and think it through. Talk to your partner about it. And there's no shame in that. The other side of that coin is when someone is offering, we'll do whatever. Let us help, saying yes to that. I don't know about you, but a lot of my clients tend to be high achieving, perfectionistic, obsessive compulsive tendencies, people pleasing, right? And myself included, makes up about 98% of my practice. And so accepting help is a very hard thing to grasp with those personality traits. If this is part of your makeup, okay, of the responses that you typically have to a situation where I'm used to managing everything, or it's going from 1 to 2, right? I handled everything with 1. We cannot take our past abilities to necessarily mean that's we're going to continue to be able to do when there's a change of +1, +2, whatever. And that's so much of what I work on with my clients, is because so many of my clients are used to being able to handle it, manage it on top of everything.
That's one of the hardest things, is like, well, I'm used to doing all these things, like high achiever, just totally like you described. And then now it's like, I am really struggling with having a new baby because I can't keep up the way I used to, or I'm not able to do all the things. Like, I'm really good at doing so many things and accomplishing a lot in a day and stuff. And now I feel like I'm not getting a third of what I feel like I should be getting done.
And that's where expectations, I work so much with my clients, because again, I'm sure we have very similar clientele or even conversations, right? And that's where I suggest you may have been able to come home from work pre-children and do your to-do list, right? Of, study or housework or meet a friend or self-care, whatever. You're just not in that phase anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really scaling back expectations of productivity. I think the hard part, though, for those who are used to getting things done and doing it well and doing it independently, I took care of all this with, one eye closed and on 2 hours of sleep, and I was fine. We are now entered into this whole new phase of life in which that's just not sustainable. Nor should it have been, or was it all along, perhaps. But now it's like, no, this is really just you having to face and accept, which can be hard, your new reality. And so I say, if you had, 5 to-do items on your to-do list pre-kids, put 1 on there a day.
Yes.
And you're winning.
And you're not failing if you don't do that one thing either, which I think is like having to retrain how we perceive things of our accomplishments. What do you encourage your clients? How do you encourage them to like temper these expectations? Or their expectations?
A strategy that I use, and I still do it myself, is I'm a paper planner kind of girl. For children, that would be all the little tedious things. I don't know what I filled it up with, come to think of it, but it was busy.
Right.
This strategy has been helpful for me and clients over the years, is look at what are the must-dos, okay? Like, what needs to get done in a day? Needs to. Is it an emergency? Will your house fall down if there's dishes in the sink? I encourage them to write them down, write the to-dos down, take that paper planner, and while you have your large list, scatter them through the week. And so it's not all, I have to do this all on Monday or else I failed for the day. But even if it's one thing a day, if you don't cross it off, that's okay, because the transition also comes in identifying that our value doesn't come from accomplishment or productivity.
Right. Yes.
Our value is inherent. Most of my clients have grown up that their value and praise and reinforcement comes with achievement, accomplishment, productivity. That goes out the window with motherhood. So are you cared for? Is your baby cared for? By cared for, I mean fed, semi-dry for the most part, and feel loved. Those are the priorities. The to-do list, ask yourself, is this an emergency? Because laundry isn't, unless you need them for tomorrow, which that might warrant that. Taking the load of, or the list that's in your mind, mapping it out to be more realistic. When I say, I literally say, put one thing on a day at a time, and then resist the urge to go, go, go. Even if you complete that one task, okay, good, sit down. Try and tolerate the discomfort that may come with not doing something. Breathe, force yourself to watch a show, listen to a meditation.
Like rest, your body is doing so much.
Honestly, though, in the last few years of motherhood, I wish I knew this when they were younger, but rest is a proactive measure,
Mm-hmm.
especially for moms. It's not, okay, let me do all these things, then I can rest. Or I haven't done anything, I don't deserve to rest. It can be a proactive measure of self-care and preservation rather than a reactive measure for burnout. I have this thing that I'm supposed to do today, but I had a tough day. Well, scrap it. Is it an emergency? Or do you need to rest and restore?
How else do you encourage your moms, your clients, to take care of themselves?
It is honestly the foundation of what I work with on my clients. Whenever somebody comes to me and tells me they're feeling this or that, or they're feeling increased anxiety, what are you doing for self-care? What are you doing to take care of yourself? And honestly, every time it's like, yeah, it's been stressful. I've had a hard time doing that, as an example. So self-care for me is, and within my practice, I encourage, you have got to make time. It's not going to happen, or it's not going to just come out of the air. Or if it does, like a lot of times with newborns, they sleep a lot during the day, and you're like, what do? I have to do all the bottles. I have to clean. I have to. No, you can rest during that too, or you can listen to a meditation or call a friend if it brings connection. Self-care is whatever replenishes you. It doesn't mean that, like, okay, so if working out or exercise, if you don't like it, that I don't count that as self-care. I count that as, taking care of your body if you need to, doing things that feel replenishing to you. It can be free. It can be calling a friend. It can be 5 minutes. It can be listening to a meditation, or it can be sitting in silence. It can be a day long where you decide, I'm going to go spend it in nature or alone or with my partner. I think so much of the buzz around self-care that it's like has to be lavish, take a lot of time or money, and that's just not the case.
Let's be honest, we don't necessarily have time to be doing those things anyway. So what are those like little moments you can get in there for yourself that really like feed you, like you said, like replenish you?
I have, especially newer clients, I like them to come up with 5 things that if they had 5 minutes of freedom to take to what could be or feel replenishing to them for 5 minutes. And, honestly, to get ideas, because some of my clients, like, I don't know what refuels me. Look on Pinterest or Google. Like, the internet can be a helpful tool, because I can't necessarily say do this because it's going to feel good for you. It needs to be something that's personal and individualized. So look around on the internet. Pinterest has all these pretty little things, right? So I asked them to make a list of 5 things if they had 5 minutes. So for me, it's like silence or meditation or breathing exercises. Make a list of 5 things if they have an hour. So that might be exercise or a nap, participating in a hobby. And then 5 things that if they had a few hours to a day. And that way, when they find themselves with those moments in time, they can't say, I forget, or I don't know. Make it in the notes section of your phone or something.
I tell my clients the same thing as Mike. If you had 5 minutes, an hour, a half a day or whatever, because then it is easy. Because I could be sitting there, I'm like, I don't know, and I can't think of it, right? Because we're the decision fatigue, being able to do that, and then we're like doing something that's not helpful or it doesn't make us feel good, like scrolling Facebook or Instagram or something like that.
And that may not be replenishing at that time for you. Exactly. It's really trying to maximize and find those moments. And I think that takes a lot of becoming more mindful and self-aware of those breaks. We operate so much on autopilot. So it's really doing multiple check-ins with yourself a day. How am I feeling right now? What do I need? And that can be hard when we're just on go, go, go autopilot mode.
I love your suggestions and very similar things that we share. So I think it's just reassuring. Like, I think it is helpful. And I know something I've recently been doing, like I've been doing this like business group or whatever, and they had suggested that we track our time, which I never do. I've been doing it for a week and it's very enlightening. Areas where I waste my time, it's probably better than it normally would be because I'm like, oh, I'm tracking this. So I want to make sure I'm tracking it for a useful thing and then how I'm spending it. And I feel like it's been a good quality week because of like actually looking at my time. Thank you so much for being here today. But if there was one thing you wanted to leave parents with today, like what would you say?
I would say you need to be okay for your kids to be okay. So much of the time we're focused on our kids, our family, all of that. If you're not okay, nothing else is going to matter. Right. Take that time. It's important. Think of your self-care as an act of helping your family.
Right.
We need you to be okay, you to feel as good as you can. Call in the troops if you need to, but if you're not okay, it's a setup for a lot of other things to fall out of place. You deserve it. Become an expert at self-care, like honestly, you know, where you can just implement it when and where you can, and especially when you need it.
All right, Kristin, where can people find you?
I am on Instagram at Good Vibe Mom Tribe. I think you've tagged me a couple times. I really come out there as more, obviously, as a resource to make people feel, or moms, especially women, that they're not alone in what they might be experiencing. My website is my name. It's www.KristinMize.LCSW.com. Find out more about me. I do have a practice in Marietta, Georgia. That's where you can find me.
Well, thank you so much again for being here with us. And if you're watching this video as a recording on another platform, please join our Facebook community at Happy with Baby Community on Facebook. And until next time, remember to take care of yourself. If you have time, it's a necessity.